This is Self-Directed Research. Our hosts, James and Amos, entertain each other with weekly hyper-focused technical deep dives. Amos continues on the arc this week with How Far Can You Take OpenFX? Make sure to like, follow, and subscribe wherever you find us, and visit sdr-podcast.com/episodes for other presentations, videos, show notes, and transcripts. Also, mark your calendars. Self-Directed Research will be recording live at Eurorust in Paris and online October 9th and 10th, 2025. Don't miss it. And as usual, stay tuned to the end to hear more about Depot, the sponsor of this episode.
So I've been up all night. No, that's not true. Trying to figure out what to bring to show to class. And I thought it might be fun if we did the freaking news, but I didn't. I don't know. It kept me up, so I opened my iPhone Notes app just to list all the things I could talk about. And I decided to use the research that I did yesterday to kind of close the arc of me going deeper and deeper into rabbit holes when it comes to making videos the silliest possible way. James, are you excited?
I am. I'm glad I was using Bluetooth headphones because I did wander away to get my fidget toy, but I did hear the whole intro.
Good. So today's episode is called How Far Can You Take OpenFX? Subtitle, Can You Embed a Full Motion Design Suite with it? But I would like to manage everyone's expectations, including my own, is that I only put like 1 day of research into this.
For folks who haven't listened to your last episode where we were introduced to what OpenFX, do you want to remind the audience what OpenFX is and where you start this rabbit hole dive in?
James, ye of little faith.
Well, I've got to ask for the audience.
Previously on Self-Directed Research.
Love it.
So first of all, as always, you can get the slides on sdr-podcast.com/episodes or by watching the episode on YouTube or Spotify. We have video on Spotify. And for those of you who don't know, I make YouTube videos, and on the slide we can currently see what my videos look like. It's mostly a talking head, mine, in front of code. Sometimes there's a green screen involved, but we don't need to get into that. The important part is how do we render that code and how do we like animate it and highlight parts of it and whatnot. And I've gone through several different techniques to do that. It all started with screenshots because the code blocks are already on my website, right? My website is also all custom. It does syntax highlighting. So they're already rendered exactly the way I would like to present them on my website. So ideally, I just take that and put that in the videos. And that's what I used to do. It's just use the macOS screenshot tool and do a rectangle screenshot and save that somewhere, rename that to something meaningful, make sure I don't lose it because that's the thing with DaVinci Resolve projects. The cloud is a relative concept. And yeah, it just took a lot of time and it was hard to position them properly if you go from one slide to the next. If you did the rectangle screenshot slightly different from the one before, it's wonky. You can definitely see it in the transition from one to the other. The controls in DaVinci Resolve to set the position and size of the text are very weird. I don't even know what they're based on, honestly. And, it was not good. So I started looking for solutions on how to make this easier because I usually write an entire article first and then make a video out of it. So I have everything. So I can just open the article in a browser like Safari. And I noticed that in Safari, in the DevTools, well, they call it the web inspector, but you can make transparent screenshots. And then in the automating macOS episode of the season, we discovered that we can use Apple scripts to automate Safari, which means you can make those transparent screenshots automatically. And for one of the videos I had like 200 of them, blocks of code and diagrams and whatnot. So, it gets very long to do it by hand.
Wow. Which one was that?
I forget. Honestly,
Okay.
I'm lost in my pipeline.
To be honest, you probably could have said anything and it wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah. I've started making shorter pieces because it's just not nice to have a 50-minute video to edit, I think. Some people here can relate.
Now you're considering the niceness of your editor's time instead of just being your time. You go, wow, I wouldn't inflict that on anyone, let alone someone who works with me.
Yeah.
I appreciate it. The past, I don't know how many episodes have been like hour long.
Said Amanda, who's been editing 50-minute episodes. Don't worry, Amanda. This one will be a short one.
Yeah, exactly. Only 44 slides, or what is it?
Yeah.
Nice.
I've aligned incentives for my videos because I pay my editor by minute of edited video.
Nice.
So I have an incentive to make them short. And then we discuss the rate and evolve it over time. But so that's what we discussed in automating macOS. You just use AppleScript, which was very fun. There's on the slide. If you're watching the slide, you can see that there is not a mono-space font, but a serif font. Actually, is it serif? No, I don't see serif. Is it sans? Whatever. It's proportional for sure, which is the opposite of monospace.
It's sans serif. There are no serifs on this font.
I thought maybe the lack of sleep made the sans disappear. The serifs disappear. In another SDR episode named Blackmagic Fusion is Weird, I discussed my new and current setup. I've already released a video with it, I forget which one, which involved reversing the Lua-based format that Blackmagic Fusion uses for node graphs and just kind of generating what it expects and generating a text plus node with the character level styling modifier and doing syntax highlighting that way. And I even vibe coded a little preview on my website. So you press a button and then it opens this editor that uses content editable. So you can remove the parts that we're not talking about in the video right now. You can like select a bit of text and press space and it actually highlight this and dims everything else. It's really, really, really nice. It has a stand-in for my face. I look super goofy. Again, really, you should check the slides. That's half the fun.
This was disappointing because this is one of the few website plugins that only works locally and you can't trigger it remotely. Because otherwise, I'd love to like edit your page and then slap your face in on examples and be like, you are making your own meme templates, except for it's...
I need a new Patreon tier for like green screen pictures of me. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, exactly.
For evil people. I just saw yesterday on Reddit a post where some burger place lets you pay the Veruca Sold special. You can pay $1,000 to get in front of the line and just, I want it now, daddy. I think that's what it said.
Exactly, yeah.
And I think that's something people should consider, like making tiers that are higher. So yeah, that reminds me also, someone said like on Twitter a long time ago, you know, when Twitter was still Twitter, they said like, if someone were to pay me like $5,000 a month, I would just stop posting indefinitely. And that's true.
I do remember who was. I'm gonna have to go back and find that because I definitely remember that of the like.
It's someone we know. I forget whom.
Yeah, it was just the I'll shut up. You know, for as long as that check keeps clearing, I'll just shut the hell up.
And it worked out beautifully on my blog. I have my articles that are exclusive for 6 months. Someone was like, "Hey, it's bad that it's exclusive for 6 months," and I was like, "Okay, you wanna pay to change that?" I was like, "Okay." And that was Deepwell, the sponsor of this episode. So. Big thanks to them.
Yeah, I was gonna say it was our lovely sponsor Depot who has sponsored this entire season and that article.
Very generous and very cool platform. Check them out.
Yeah, listen to the end of the episode.
Yeah. Back to my short presentation. In the Blackmagic Fusion is Weird episode, which is kind of a misnomer because it has this whole nice solution of generating Lua. I also talked about the other ways in which Fusion can be extended, including fuses, which we learned come from the same word as fusion. We weren't sure during the episode, but in the show notes that Amanda put together, I saw that the etymology says that they are from the same word.
Were they consistent? I saw one was like a bundle of twine, like fuse, I think it was a French word. And then I don't remember where fusion came from, but...
Fuse is a spaceship, like a rocket ship.
Oh, yeah. Maybe I'm probably pronouncing the French word very, very wrong, but...
Yeah, my brain is too mushy to...
That's okay.
Figure out which French word you mean.
We'll leave etymology for another day.
Yeah, so fuses... which are bits of Lua that you can hot reload and everything. It's a very nice development environment, which are fast enough because it's using a JIT. It's actually Lua JIT. Whenever people say Lua, they usually mean Lua JIT. Not always, but usually. And OpenFX. I briefly touched on OpenFX. I was like, okay, it's a standard way to do video plugins. A little bit like AU and what was the one? VST for audio. But this one is for video. And I said, you probably could bring in your own renderer and do exactly what you wanted. And yeah, one of the limitations we ran into by using Blackmagic Fusion's own text renderer is that it does not support color emoji, for example. And it does not support font fallbacks. So part of the difficulty for me in generating the graph is that if, for example, there's a nerd font symbol, it has to specify that this span is using the nerd font symbol font. Everything else is using Berkeley Mono, except for emojis, which are using Noto without color.
Monospace or the monochrome?
Yeah, the monochrome one. Yeah.
And I went back and looked it up, and the word I thought was toast is actually tofu, and that's where the Noto Sans name comes from, is no tofu, because it defines all of the symbols for all of the emojis. So you'll never get the tofu, which is that little rectangle that's either an exclamation point or has like the hex characters in there. I don't remember why it's called tofu, but that was the word I was trying to think of in that episode.
The Unicode replacement character box.
Yeah. Well, I think there's maybe two. There's one.
Wow, no tofu.
Yeah. But tofu was what I was thinking of when it shows you the, like, I don't have the glyph. Here's some hex codes. Do you like that?
I like learning about all this stuff, like going through editing the episode, collecting all the links, and then being like, I don't know what you were talking about. And now, next episode, learning about last week's episode. Very cool.
I think you should feel free to cut in, like, add editor's notes in the middle of episodes. Like, I checked it. It's not true or something.
They're still wrong.
I was actually thinking about that, yeah. But, who knows? Maybe in a future episode. We'll see.
Yeah. So yeah, I mentioned OpenFX saying, yeah, you can make native plugins. It's clearly overkill. Obviously, I'm not going to touch that. That would be crazy. So that's what I did next.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, of course. because it's stuck in the back of my mind.
There were some hints in there where you're like, oh, there's a crate. I definitely don't need that. I'll definitely use the Lua for that. And it was one of those like, oh no, this is Chekhov's gun in the last episode.
Chekhov's crate. Yeah, that's when I was writing the slides, I was actually thinking of that line. Yeah, there was a crate for it. So how could I not look into it? Of course. I think the audience deserves that. I think that's what we're all here for. It's to watch me suffer. I was kind of immediately disappointed because the crate OFX-RS is written against nightly Rust from 6 years ago. I didn't realize that. I thought it was stable Rust from 6 years ago, which would have been totally fine, I think. Maybe a couple fixes, but like unless something was wrong in terms of soundness, I think we would have been fine. But nightly from 6 years ago, it was using two features that just have changed or are not there anymore, or whatever. I got over 200 errors trying to compile the example code, so I thought that would be the end of it. That I told you it would be short.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. 2019 Rust. It's not as far as it could be. We're like post 2018, which was a pretty big step. But yeah, 6 years of nightly is a stretch.
Yeah, but then I found NTSC-rs, which is a port of NTSC-Qt to Rust and SIMD by Valadaptive. And among other things, it's 20 times faster. Yeah, it uses SIMD and concurrency and stuff. It's an analog.
They have a very pretty website.
It does. It's a VHS effect for your video, a filter, essentially. And it uses, what does the website say? Uses algorithms that model how NTSC transmission and VHS encoding actually work. I imagine that is the next word.
Ooh, someone was asking me about this on Blue Sky, because there's shaders that I've seen for terminals that give you that like CRT glow and stuff like that. But I'm not surprised that, especially with all of the backrooms and like cassette futurism stuff that's going on, that there's not like super shadered CRTs and VHS things going on these days.
True. That one is all CPU as far as I can tell, but I don't know. I think it's an old effect, ported to Rust. And the code base is very versatile because it has a standalone application with eGUI controls. I don't know if you recognize the eGUI-ness of the GUI.
Definitely.
Yeah, it could be, what's the other one? What's the C++ one? The one used in all the video games. ImGUI.
Oh yeah, Dear ImGUI.
Yeah, dear ImGUI, exactly. It could be that, but I spend too much time with IGUI making demos. So it's available as a standalone. It's available as a CLI. It's available as an After Effects and Premiere plugin, and as an OpenFX plugin.
And are we getting back into those plugin world like we were talking about with the audio ones, where it's like, you have purchased a DLL. Congratulations, it runs in your environment. Or is it something much more specific to this platform?
Kind of, actually. So NTSC-rs is open source.
Okay.
So actually, they use Cargo Xtask to build the plugin, but it's just so it can generate that little bundle, which looks like a macOS app bundle. It has a contents directory with an info.plist in there, a macOS directory with a .ofx, which is just a shared library, resources directory with an icon of the plugin, and the info.plist is just XML. There's one of the plist formats. There's a binary one, and there's a third one, I forget. Like text, but not XML. I don't know, James. Does that ring a bell?
Yeah, I gotcha. It's exactly the same kind of thing that I had to put together for the PostStation bundle. And for when you're shipping a binary on macOS, so it definitely rings true.
Yeah, it looks a lot like it, but it's not .app, it's .ofx.bundle. It's weird.
It's a folder that's pretending not to be a folder.
And so the reason there's an X task, which is kind of turning cargo into make, you can have different targets, and it's cargo X task build OFX plugin, is because they want to make a universal build. I don't know if that's built into Rust C yet. So nowadays you make a binary for x86-64 and for AR64, but in the past you did it for Intel 32-bit and Intel 64-bit. You put that in the same binary, or PowerPC plus Intel 32-bit, even further back. So any kind of transition that Apple has done, like macOS has done, you could have a transition period where you shipped both binaries in the same thing, and it's still happening today because not everyone has Apple Silicon Mac, an ARM Mac. If you go on Visual Studio Code webpage, for example, there's a single download for macOS button, but if you download that and you use lipo-info, then you see that there's two architectures in there, x86-64 and ARM64.
I think I can't remember if it was Android or iOS, like for the iPhones and things like that, where they were doing that as well, because there's different generations of the processors that they use. And instead of doing the hey, we're compiling for the oldest compatible x86 version and things like that, there's the option to do multiple compilations for different target platforms so that you can get either the operating system platform level or the CPU for Apple, where there's much more control over hey, this works on these versions of phones and later, which means you have all of these processor extensions available for more performance and stuff like that. I wouldn't be surprised if both of them were doing that, but I guess it's just how you do the packaging and the App Store handles it.
It's possible, but given that these would be mobile apps,
this is an aside. I
think the equation changes a little bit, because who cares if VS Code is a few megabytes larger, but on a phone, I don't know. I know there's SDK target levels for sure, and I know those are hard to handle properly, and those are also a thing on macOS, but yeah.
But yeah, universal binaries. I remember them, like you said, from x86 and ARM, but yeah, they continue to be relevant.
Yeah. If you want to save the bytes, you can go to the detailed download page and have the Intel or Apple Silicon builds separately, and all the for Linux you get the ARM32 builds for what's ARM32 these days?
Original Raspberry Pis. Raspberry Pi was 32-bit for a long while, and then it did a very weird thing where the kernel was 64-bit, but the user space was 32-bit, which was a compat thing, so that they didn't have to...
Because of RAM usage? 32-bit pointers are... Okay.
For compat, if people had... Yeah, so if people had compiled some binary application for 32-bit, you need a 32-bit user space to continue to run that, because otherwise you'd have to recompile to run on a 64-bit user space. But you might want your operating system to be able to handle more than the two, or, be able to handle more RAM, or at least have extended RAM range, even if it's virtual memory range. So for a while they were doing that. I think they're all 64-bit now, but yeah, I know Raspberry Pi was the 32-bit ARM that everyone had and was popular for quite a while.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's funny. If you look at Windows or Mac, Mac is just Intel chip, right? It doesn't even think about 32 bits. And Windows is x64, ARM64. They're using the terminology for each platform, which is nice. Anyway, that bundle structure that I just showed is the same on other platforms, because it's a very macOS thing to do, to distribute an app as a folder and call it a bundle and have it show differently in the Finder, but actually it's just a folder if you look in the command line. But as far as I've been able to find, because I've been looking around the OFX-RS directory repository, even if I wasn't able to run it, I looked at how they were doing things, and they are making a content/Linux-x86-64 directory, it's a Franken bundle. It's weird because it's macOS semantics on Linux. I don't know. It's really weird to me. Anyway, NTSC-rs does work. I was able to build it from source and import it in DaVinci Resolve. And it works everywhere. It works as an effect you can drag onto a clip in the edit page. It works as an effect in the color page. And it works as a node in Fusion, which is absolutely lovely. You can see on the slide is me on a green screen with an NTSC effect on a 480p timeline, because that's what they recommend doing. Even though it can run at high resolutions, it's not supposed to have more than 480 lines.
You get sort of that anachronism of here's my 4K image with scan lines, and you're that I don't think anyone was doing that.
Yeah.
There might have been raw captures of that, but you certainly weren't broadcasting at more than 480 lines. It's got the vibe of it. It's very like found footage, or like someone sent in a VHS of themselves in 1990 to some technology show to it. You've definitely gotten that vibe out of the effect.
And there's a ton of parameters you can, a ton of controls you can change. I've put side by side the parameters as seen from DaVinci Resolve and the parameters as seen from the standalone eGUI interface. And the code base is just really well designed because they have a single way to describe all the parameters, and then it's mapped to whichever interface, because they have essentially 3 different GUIs, right? They have eGUI, the standalone, they have Premiere and After Effects, I think, are roughly the same, but I have a lot of commonalities. And then OpenFX. And OpenFX has different kind of hosts like DaVinci Resolve or Natron, or like any sort of VFX program that can load OpenFX plugins is called a host. It provides functions and provides these the UI, the parameters like loading settings, saving settings, etc. And also you can see on every parameter here there's a little diamond that's for keyframes. So OpenFX plugins don't need to know about keyframes. They just need to, for every render request, they just need to get the parameter for that time. And then the host is in charge of making the values change over time in the timeline and like interpolating things and stuff.
Hello, Amos. Yes, as someone who does not edit a lot of video, what distinction does keyframes make when it comes to applying an effect? Is the effect not just a stream of images that it's modifying, or is there intelligence going on?
Sure, but you see intensity here, you can make it change over time. So keyframe is just like, it's this value at that frame, and then you wait 30 frames and then you change it, and then it changes linearly, or like maybe there's a little tweening happening between the 2 values. It's just animation, basically.
Gotcha.
So yeah, let's keep walking through like what is actually in an OpenFX plugin. There's well-known structs. It's exactly what you would expect from a plugin API, essentially. There's well-known structs. You export 2 important functions. One is OFX get number of plugins, which in this case returns 1 and is not shown on the slide, and OFX get plugin, which returns a struct. What's interesting in the OpenFX API is that they use a lot of string constants everywhere. The first thing in the struct that you return is just a magic string. It's a KOFX image effect plugin API as a string. And that's it. Well, without the K. And then there's API version, which is good. That means they can actually evolve it. Well, it's set to 1 in this case, but they can just like add or
which means it's never changed.
Which means yeah. But they could like change the struct. They could interpret the struct as having this header that never changes except for the API version field, and then based on if it's 1 or 2 or 3, like read different fields after that. Like sort of like a Rust enum.
Yeah. These are fun things for like binary compat, like, because you run into it in protocols as well as like ABI things of you need to just read the first 2 fields and then you promise that those never change.
Yeah.
But that second API field, like you said, it acts like an enum where it's like, do I actually know how to interpret the variant that it's claiming? Because if it says 2 and I have no idea what 2 means, I should stop reading because things are about to get very, very weird.
Just throw an error.
Yeah.
Yeah, instead of getting memory corruption. Yeah. Next up, we have main entry, which is directly one of the fields of that struct that we return. And main entry is kind of like the main, kind of like DLLs on Windows also have a main entry point. It's just funny to me because it gets a string, a C string, and you compare it against a bunch of constants, and then you know if the action you're supposed to do is load or describe or get regions of interest or whatever, or render. So that means every frame you render, every tile you render, there's a multi-threading thing that you can ask the host to do. You can ask the host to like divide the image in different tiles and ask you to render tiles in different threads and whatnot. You're just a poor shared library, so your function can be called from different threads. The first thing you do is just compare against, like do a chain of ifs. It's like, okay, it's not load, it's not describe, it's not describing context, blah, 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 blah. Finally, it's like, oh, it is render. So either string comparisons are a lot faster than I imagine, or that is not that worried about performance. I don't know. James, how do you feel about this?
I mean, computers are fast. Like,
true.
Yeah. I mean, a match, like, it looks grosser than a match, but a match is essentially just doing the same thing. Like, you can do much smarter string compares of, like, making either like a regex style automata, or what are they called? They're not just finite state machines.
Sure, but why not just export constants from the library or something? Like, define I don't know, the U64 or whatever in file formats. Like MP4, we have those atoms which are just 32 bits, like for 4 times 8, 32, just for characters. So you have like MOOV, you have MP4A, whatever. That's what all those things are, 4 characters long. It's so that you get a nice 32-bit constant out of it.
I assume 32 stir comps are way cheaper than whatever video effects you're about to be doing, honestly. So like order of magnitude, they might go, it's so we can debug it easier, because then you could just print instead of having to do a lookup or whatever when you print logs of like, we were told to do this.
True.
I don't know. I think you're right. It would definitely be much smaller, but I think probably one of those order of magnitude things where it goes, whatever. We're about to do a bunch of DSP, so whatever.
Well, what I also like is that in NTSC-rs specifically, it calls set panic hook, and I have no idea what the cost of that is. Like, I have not measured it. I've measured other parts because the plugin was slow at some point. I did some performance measurement. I did not measure how long it takes to set the panic hook, but I imagine, I don't know.
I don't think a huge amount of time.
No, but
yeah, I have no idea either off the top of my head. This is running in stud, which I don't do most of the time.
True.
Or at least I don't think too hard when I'm running in stud. Like, I think hard when I'm running in
True.
bare metal, but yeah.
So next up, if the action that we're supposed to do is a render, then we get the address of the functions from the host that we're supposed to call, like prop get string or prop get double, etc. Then we call that, and we get all the properties that we want. Again, mostly with string constants, like the prop get double, KOFX prop time as pointer. That's just a string. That's just OFX prop time. And we're getting it as a double, which is an F64, but it's actually just in DaVinci Resolve, that's the frame number.
Mm-hmm.
So it's fully an integer.
Summer Games Done Quick was just happened, which means everyone was talking about basically all like speedrunning and glitching and stuff like that. And there's a whole thing of like, what goes wrong when you use a floating point number for your frame counter? And it was basically like 16 million is where just add 1 breaks down because it rounds down instead of up, which means you just hard lock at 16 million frames.
So 16 millions at 25 FPS.
Oh, it's like months. Like, this was a Mario 64 glitch that was like, look, this portal stops rippling after 4.5 months, but this one stops after a month and a half because it increments by 2 or something like that.
It reminds me of the Windows 95 thing where if it stays up for 91 days or something. Didn't Foon do this?
You get this in planes and stuff when you have...
It overflows.
It's either a millisecond or a tenth of a millisecond. Whenever you see something that says it needs to be restarted every 50 days, or it crashes every 50 days, that's like, it's either every millisecond or a tenth of a millisecond in a U32 counter. Or like, you start to notice those numbers, like this is 1 millisecond, 10 millisecond, 100 millisecond, 1 microsecond of like those times where it's like, it just crashes if you run that long, and it means that they didn't handle overflows right.
Well, to be fair, it can be hard to handle properly. 60 million frames is 24 frames. According to O3, which I trust with reservations, it's 7 days, 9 hours, 46 minutes, and 40 seconds. So if you make a student film that's just really boring in DaVinci Resolve, you might get into issues at some point. So you get the addresses of the methods you need to call from the host, and then you call those and you get all the properties, all the parameters that I've showed earlier, like intensity, frequency, detail, snow in the case of NTSC-rs, but it could be anything, right? You can have anything in the UI. It's pretty flexible. You also get the input signal, the output signal, output buffer where you're supposed to write the thing, the result of your effect being applied. The host tells you which part of the output buffer you're supposed to touch. It tells you the buffer format, if it's RGB, RGBA, if it's 8, 16, 32 bits, if it's the floating point integer. I was curious what code path actually got used because NTSC-rs handles all possible combinations. So how is developing an OpenFX plugin? Because I wanted to find out what was the actual buffer format. I wasn't planning on supporting everything. This is research level. We're just trying to get it to work for one specific configuration, like only on macOS, only on one host. And the first thing that hit me is how do you log? James, do you have any idea?
How do you log?
How do you log? How do you print things?
Okay, so if I had to guess,
You send a postcard RPC message. No.
It's probably not far off. I mean, what I would assume is in the plugin, you get passed in some vtable that has methods that you're allowed to call.
Yes.
Or there's some like global or something like that.
But no.
Yes, but no.
There's absolutely nothing standard.
Oh, love it. Love it.
There's no OpenFX blessed way to do logs. You can write to standard error, but then you need to start your host from the terminal, which is annoying. Resolve has its own log, which you can't touch. I'm assuming you can write it from fuses. And they also have their own SDK to make plugins that are not OpenFX.
Are you going to tell me that you like spawned a Lua interpreter just to print messages using like some kind of Lua trampoline or something like that?
No, I only had a day, James. I didn't do that. No.
Okay,
you're seeing
fair.
the solution in front of you, which I just opened the file and just appended to it.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Just no sandboxing. Just straight to temp.
Yeah, of course. No, sandboxing, James. Your concerns are very far from the concerns of VFX people, I think.
Oh, it's fair. It's fair. Yeah.
Another question: How do you reload your plugin? Any ideas?
You panic.
No. If you panic, I'm pretty sure it takes down the host.
Okay.
Well, yeah.
Oh, great. Yeah, that's great. Right. No sandboxing.
Yeah. This is not WebAssembly. This is not,
How do you hot load or reload your bundle?
Exactly. Well, you don't. You can't. I'm showing you now the video plugin settings pane, and you can do pane is right, and you can disable all, enable all, but all it does is just show you the plugin in the list of things you can use or not. But once it's loaded, right? DL close is a lie. In pretty much all platforms, it always leaks things. There's no cleanly unloading something. In Rust, if you load a library, it returns a static lifetime, and for a good reason. It's because you really shouldn't unload things that you've loaded. Even if you could like cleanly do it, apparently in C++ you can cleanly do it. Even if you could do all that, and you're initializing metal kernels and like shaders and whatever, and those can't necessarily be torn down pretty, like, I don't know. I don't know the details, but essentially you cannot. So the way to reload it is to close the WinResolve and then reopen the WinResolve and then reload your project. Do you have any concept of how long that takes?
Like...
I've timed it. How long to shut it down?
Okay. I know vaguely what it is for the self-directed research, but we do no video effects or any... Well, I mean, like, we have slides. I'm sure... minutes?
No, thankfully, no. I have a very nice M4. Wait, is it taking minutes on your end to open the product?
No, it takes like 15 or 20 seconds for this, but we also aren't loading any video.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's more in the ballpark.
Yeah.
What gets me is that it takes 10 seconds to shut down before you can even start it up again.
Huh.
That's annoying.
You know, someone's just has a sleep that they're like waiting for something to do, and they're like, whatever, it's a bunch of sleep 1 or sleep 3s in there, and it becomes serialized, and it takes 10 seconds.
I think it's all the shaders and stuff, whatever, being unloaded or something. Actually, Jesus, that's another nerd snipe. But these instruments could probably tell us what it's spending its time on.
Come back next season for debugging the plugin interface of this. But yeah, that's...
No, this is the end of the arc.
That is one of those fun things of like the thundering herd of destructors is like a not trivial performance problem in a lot of places of just, oh, we're going to run all the destructors now. And it turns out that takes a long time, but actually just killing the program would have achieved the same thing 99% of the time, except for now it takes us, 30 seconds to close the program.
So because it takes a long time to shut down the WinResolve and open it up again, what other people do is that they use another host like Natron. I don't know how to say it in English. I know it's a French software. It's scriptable with Python, and you just write a little script that sets up a node graph and renders everything and saves an image.
Now, Amos, I can excuse a Lua, but a Python?
I told you it's also doing Python in the WinResolve.
I'm trying to remember what episode it was. There was definitely some episode where I said something about Python, and Amos was like, I can excuse a fourth, but a Python? Oh, I think it was talking about bootstrapping.
But there's no AR64 version of Natron or something. When I launch it on my computer, it just immediately crashes. Well, not immediately. That's what's puzzling. Like, most things immediately crash. It opens, it shows a little window, it waits a few seconds, it's loading more stuff, and then it crashes. At that point, we have talked about OpenFX, but we haven't really talked about how do we actually do the rendering, right? We wanted to improve on the text rendering with Blackmagic Fusion. How do we actually do that in Rust? James, I don't know if you're familiar with the font rendering ecosystem in Rust.
No, No is my answer. I know the people who are doing it a lot of the times, but I am not familiar with it.
You do? Well, okay. That was a hell of a reaction. Okay, I wanted, what I was thinking when I blurted out was okay. It was like, you should thank them. They're doing great work. But what came out was okay.
Oh. Well, I know some of the people. I don't recognize Mooman219. If it wasn't Rafe, then I probably wouldn't have recognized who it was.
The one that I found that is pretty simple and that kind of replaces Rust type and AB glyph and glyph brush and glyph brush layout. Rust type being like, I think, an early port of free type to Rust. Pure Rust alternative. I'm not actually sure if it's a port.
I'm just excited that it's no standard because now I want to go mess with it and see if I can use that for font rendering because that's a fun thing in embedded where a lot of the times you pre-bake your fonts.
Yeah.
Like you rasterize them to specific font sizes and then you just...
Yeah, a lot of this stuff is actually no STD.
Take the glyphs and stamp them in.
Yeah.
Nice.
This is how far I got with my research. I integrated Fondue, like I kind of vampirized the NTSC-rs plugin and I got it to render the number of the frame in the output. At first, upside down, and then finally right side up.
Is this one of those like, is 0 top left or bottom left or bottom right? Who is it that has the excellent, someone we both follow on Twitter and then Blue Sky has all of the graphic or all like the game engines and stuff like that?
I think it's Freya Holmer. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, exactly. It's Freya of like, what is X, Y, and Z positive, negative, and where does the 0 index start on all of those on 2D and 3D modes? Because everything's different.
But that's the fun thing is if there's several ways to do a thing, if there's several possible conventions, all of them are in use somewhere. But Unreal is actually changing that, I think.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, they're switching to something else. I don't know. They're joining another, whatever. I saw the announcement. I was like, what? Why? It's going to break everything. I'm pretty happy with that. And it runs in almost real time. Apparently getting all the parameters that I wasn't using was what was taking the most time. And I got it down to like, for a 4K frame, rendering at between 3 and 4 milliseconds, which I thought was pretty nice.
Okay.
Because I thought we had like for 60 FPS, you get a 16 millisecond budget.
Yeah, 16.6 milliseconds a frame, yeah.
Exactly, and I only need to do 25 FPS. So I figured we had plenty of time, but it's not running smoothly.
Wait, you know what that means? You know what that means, Amos, right?
What does that mean?
You were using the NTSC plugin at a PAL frame rate. Because NTSC is 30 or 59.97, and PAL is 25 or 50.
But my footage is, I live in Europe, okay? Leave me alone. But yeah.
Yeah. It's like the Slow-Mo Guys episode where they explain why they want the lower frame rate, and it's just why more frames doesn't actually help.
Yeah. For some reason, even with it taking 3 to 4 milliseconds by frame, it's still not running smoothly. Like, playback is not smooth. Fortunately, you have a playback resolution kind of fixed. You can run at half resolution while you do the editing, and then while you export at full resolution. But it's still kind of not great because this is just one line of very basic text. This is why I was wondering about this setting the panic hook, because maybe that's taking a few milliseconds here and there, you know? Probably not much, but...
Yeah, I was saying, if you don't have logging, then doing timestamps of things is going to be egregious. And then, like you said, trying to do profiling for a DLL that you didn't start, that someone else is starting, becomes ... fun, especially if, like, the eGUI, like, if that raw binary setup does things that are just intrinsically different than the inside of DaVinci Resolve kind of things, or inside of Fusion or whatever. Huh, that sounds fun.
Also, the other issue is that this doesn't actually improve on the renderer from Fusion because it does not support color emojis. It just supports like the basic free type stuff. Like basic, I don't know. Look at me dismissing their hard work. It's still like an amazing feat.
It's only basic, yeah.
But it supports a ton of stuff, but not color emojis. Swash supports more things as far as I can tell, but it doesn't do layouting. If you want to do layouting, you need something like Cosmic Text. And Cosmic Text actually works really nice, but I tried the demo and it does render a color emoji. I was impressed. Like, I was like, oh, does anything in the Rust ecosystem support color emoji, or is it only a thing that browsers can do? No. You can render emojis with Cosmic Text, the macOS color ones. Apparently, the color emojis format for macOS, Windows, and Linux are completely different because, yeah, that's why we can't have nice things. but the demo of Cosmic Text was actually pretty slow. Like, it's rendering a bunch of text and you can select it. It's kind of an editor, but yeah, on this pretty good computer, I expected it to be really fast, like running 60 FPS or something, and it did not. So I don't know who's to blame here. I don't know what's happening. Cosmic Text is probably great and fine, and this is not its fault. But text rendering is just more expensive than I thought. I guess the trick is to not do it every frame if you don't need to, and like cache as much as possible, and I don't know, like use atlases and whatnot. And the demo is just about correctness instead. I have no idea. But at this point, I started wondering, well, I have demos on my website which use more than just text. Like, what if I could just render a whole browser in there instead of messing around and having just text and text renderers in Rust?
Okay.
When it comes to embedding browsers, there are several options. One of them is Ultralight, which is a stripped down build of, I think, WebKit, which means not Chrome, but like Safari with like JavaScript core and whatnot. It says pure GPU HTML renderer. I'm pretty sure I don't know how accurate that is. It's GPU accelerated, I'll acknowledge that. There's SDKs for Rust, non-official ones, but feasible. But I took a look at the pricing. James, what do you think this costs?
Wait, browsers cost money?
It's not a browser. It's an embeddable pure GPU HTML renderer.
HTML renderer? Contact us for pricing?
No, it's a little better than that. So there's a free tier up until 100K of revenue per year. And then there's a pro tier.
Okay.
Where you pay something yearly.
Okay.
And it's 3K.
Woo.
So some years flirt with 100K.
Wait, so where does the browser come into this? Where does the where browser? We were talking about video editing. Where browser?
Where browser? Ultralight lets you like open a web page pretty much and render it.
Okay.
In a GPU buffer.
You'd have a plugin that does browser rendering, so you'd write JavaScript. So you're running a scripting engine inside of your plugin with a rendering target, and then you're going splat into the image, and then like, rasterizing that into the green screen or something?
I'm not sure I follow your explanation, but yes, the idea would be to...
It's probably wrong.
Instead of rendering text directly, you would render web content. And that way, there's motion design tools that are available. I forgot their names, but you can write TypeScript code essentially instead of doing things on a timeline and say, okay, this element comes in, this element rotates, this element's opacity does this. You can kind of, code your own visualizations. And then the idea would be, instead of exporting that, like rendering all that to video, you could have an OpenFX plugin where you just, hey, here's the file for that scene or whatever. It would render frames as requested by the host.
Interesting.
Using an HTML engine.
Yeah.
But HTML engine is, that's how the question has become, how do we embed HTML content? So how do we render that onto a canvas? So Ultralight, easy to embed and everything, but I'm not paying 3K a year, the year that I break 100K of revenue. I looked into, it was a nice, like...
That was my question. Servo was my next question.
Yeah, Servo has a gazillion dependencies. It has SpiderMonkey. It has its own build system called Mac. I tried to build it and it immediately complained about GStreamer. I hate/love GStreamer.
GStreamer is one of those words that I've seen it install logs and stuff like that. I have no idea how it works, and it would probably hurt my head to learn.
It's not that bad. I should do an episode about it. But it has a gazillion dependencies and libraries spread all over the place because they lean into dynamic linking a lot. The Servo embedding story is, before it was abandoned, someone was keeping a repository on GitHub with examples, Paul Rouget, I think, and that hasn't been touched in 6 years. In the meantime, it's been unabandoned, and they have collaborated with Tori in January of 2024. Tori is like Electron, but in Rust.
Yeah.
And they've done a proof of concept integration.
It got picked up by that collective. What are they called?
Igalia?
Igalia. Yeah. They got picked up by Igalia because a lot of people want a little browser engine. I guess what you were saying makes a lot of sense. Like, I've seen people wanting to embed it in either like VR or XR type stuff, or even in like game engines. Because like you said, you want someone to be able to use web tech to make your heads-up display in a VR setting or something like that. So actually, it does kind of track.
Which a lot of people do, but they use...
Yeah.
CEF, which I'm just getting to. I just wanted to mention that like the Tori embedding proof of concept thingy happened in January of 2024. And then in February of 2025, there's a new blog article with a tagline of Servo is becoming truly embeddable this year. So, we're halfway through the year. I'm excited to see what's to come. But for now, in the documentation, there's nothing about how to embed or anything.
The year of Servo on the embedded.
Speaking of embedded, what most games and for example, the League of Legends client, Riot Games client and all that, all the applications that are mostly Electron but actually not, they're using the Chromium Embedded Framework, CEF. There's a crate for that, which entire page just says, use the Chromium Embedded Framework in Rust. And that's it.
I love it. Straight into the point.
Yes.
With a version number that definitely makes sense.
They match the Chromium version. You can tell it's automated because it was last published 3 days ago. So and it works, right? I tried their example and it works. You can have your own little browser with no Chrome. Chrome is the browser interface, like the address bar, the next previous button, the menus and everything. That's the Chrome. Firefox has a Chrome. It's written in CSS and JavaScript. But I don't know much about CEF, and that simple demo worked, but there's an off-screen rendering demo, and that one didn't work. So I'm assuming it was coded against Windows or something. And you need this whole kind of app bundle structure with all the libraries in the right places. It seems like it's a lot of effort. I gave up on that avenue. I'm sure it's probably the right way to go at this point because when I looked at Servo, for example, I loaded my website in it to see it. And it supports a lot of things. But for example, I have SVG diagrams that use HTML text formatting. And it only showed the shapes and it didn't show the text because it didn't support foreign objects nodes in SVG, which is kind of a bummer. Finally, I figured the easiest way to experiment with all this would be to use Electron. Because Electron has an off-screen rendering API and you can just write a bit of JavaScript code. And the way I started experimenting with this is just listening on some TCP port for some RPC requests, which is just a line of JSON. There's a bunch of ways to capture the contents of the web page, and one of them is CPU, the other is GPU. I only tried the CPU because GPU is essentially you get a shared texture handle and then you need to open it and copy from or try not to copy from the OpenFX plugin. I'm pretty sure there would be a way to, instead of filling out the buffer, say, hey, here's the shared texture handle, go take that, go use that. I don't know. Yeah, it gives those nice images. This is not different from all the other slides, but that one was generated with the whole Electron pipeline. And I figured, yeah, okay, the plugin could start Electron in the background, send those RPC requests, get the images back. But do you have any idea how long it takes to generate one 4K frame?
I bet it's not going to be 3 to 4 milliseconds.
It's not 3 to 4 milliseconds.
Okay.
650 milliseconds.
Okay. Love that.
So in that, there's Node.js startup time connecting over the TCP socket. This is not a good test. And also it's encoding everything to PNG. So you can definitely shave off a bunch of times here. There's next steps, more research is required. And next season is required for this for sure. Because I think the shared texture handle thing is the way to go if doing Electron. I think embedding Servo is probably a lot better. But then I started thinking bigger picture, even if everything worked well and was low latency, you get real-time playback and everything, you now have some interface inside the host, inside the DaVinci Resolve. And ideally, you'd also want to be able to, if you're doing motion design, if you have bits of code, you can zoom in and highlight and whatnot, that's something you need to do inside of your web contents, right? You can't do it in DaVinci Resolve because if you zoom in, if you have a clip, you put it in your scene and then you zoom that in, it's going to be pixelated, right? Does that make sense?
Yeah. You're doing pan and scan on a rasterized image, which means either the rasterized image needs to be huge so you can zoom into whatever fidelity you want, or you want it rendered on the fly, which is more like a camera flying around.
Exactly. So that means now that all your positioning, your zooming, everything needs to be a part, that needs to be a parameter that you can keyframe inside the host, or it needs to be part of a scene that you can kind of open in a separate editor, a web-based editor. And then the OpenFX plugin is just a renderer, and it's just giving you a frame of a predetermined scene. And you still have the problem that I often have, which is you usually want to do the animation synchronized with some audio, right? Someone's talking, and then you want the code to come in. as they talk about different things. And if your editor is outside of Resolve, you're not going to get the audio from the Resolve timeline. At that point, the only reasonable course of action is to make your own nonlinear editor, right?
I was wondering if it was going to come to this.
Well, I certainly haven't done it in a day. I'm not planning on doing it because how do you hire editors for your own nonlinear editor software, But that would be the way to do it.
You sound like you're standing on the ledge, and I'm not sure whether to slowly talk you down or not, or if you're excited for this this jump into the unknown.
On top of gear acquisition syndrome, I have software replacement syndrome. Like, I use software too much. DaVinci Resolve used to be this really intimidating big piece of software that I didn't know how to deal with. And now I kind of see the seams of the different parts of the things that they pulled together. And I think you could do better if you started from scratch. The problem is, of course, all the unknown unknowns. All the things that they got absolutely right and I have no idea how to do, like high performance image processing using shaders, like no idea about that. So,
or just 30 years of paper cut shaving. Like there's a huge amount of with second system syndrome where you're like, I could make it so much easier.
Yeah. And
you realize that like so much of the things that make it painful are like, oh, we decided it was worth that pain accumulated over 30 years. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, you cheat by doing less. So if you could figure out how to do something that only matters for you, hell yeah. But yeah, I imagine it's going to be a thing.
Well, I'm going to try not to go any further down that road. Wish me luck.
Famous last words.
I think we both know. That road does not end. I was going to say, we are both the epitome of if you give a mouse a cookie. We figured out scripting to, okay, well, I guess I need to replace DaVinci Resolve. Like...
But I will be strong.
All right, I believe in you.
Thank you.
I'm looking forward to next season.
Me too.
This episode is sponsored by Depot, the build acceleration platform that's on a mission to make all builds near instant. If you're tired of watching your builds in GitHub Actions crawl like the modern-day equivalent of paint drying, give Depot's GitHub Action Runners a try. They're up to 10 times faster with unlimited concurrency, faster caching, support for Linux, macOS, and Windows, and they plug right into other Depot optimizations like accelerated container image builds and remote caching for Bazel, Turbo Repo, Gradle, and more. Depot was built by developers who are tired of wasting time waiting on builds instead of shipping. It's made for teams that want to move faster and stay focused on what actually matters. That's why companies like PostHog use Depot to cut build times from over 3 hours to just 3 minutes, saving tens of thousands of build hours every week. Start your free 7-day trial at depot.dev and let them know we sent you.